Have you ever felt like you're running on a treadmill, constantly busy but going nowhere? Like your to-do list never ends, but somehow nothing important ever really gets done? You're not alone. In today's world, being busy is a badge of honor. We say yes to everything. More meetings, more responsibilities, more pressure. But what if doing less could actually lead to more success, more peace, and more meaning in life? What if the secret wasn't in doing everything, but in choosing the right things to focus on, and letting go of the rest? This is the core idea behind Essentialism by Greg McKeown, a life-changing philosophy that doesn't just help you simplify, but teaches you how to live deliberately, meaningfully, and with power. This book is not just a guide. It's a wake-up call. Greg McKeown isn't just an author. He's a leadership strategist, speaker, and a true voice of clarity in a noisy world. He has taught at companies like Apple, Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and spoken at Stanford and Harvard. But more than his resume, what makes Greg powerful is his vision. He saw that people everywhere, whether CEOs or college students, were overwhelmed, burnt out, and always chasing more. So he asked a bold question. What if the answer isn't more? What if the answer is less but better? That question led to the birth of Essentialism, a movement that's helped millions of people regain control of their time, their decisions, and their lives. Greg isn't preaching theory. He's offering a real, practical path to freedom. Imagine waking up and already feeling exhausted, even before your day starts. Your phone buzzes with emails, your calendar is packed, your mind is racing, and yet deep inside, there's this quiet voice whispering, "This isn't what life is supposed to feel like." That's where Essentialism begins, with the realization that we've been tricked. We've been taught to say yes to everything. Yes to extra shifts. Yes to last-minute meetings. Yes to every WhatsApp message, every plan, every task, even if it drains us. Greg McKeown calls this the disease of more. It's the belief that if we just keep doing more work, more activities, more goals, we'll finally arrive at success. But the truth? It's a trap. The more we do, the more scattered we become. We end up stretched so thin that we're not actually effective in anything. We confuse movement with progress. We run in every direction but never go deep. And slowly, without realizing it, we lose control. We don't choose our life anymore. Life chooses for us. Essentialism flips this completely. It starts with one radical idea. You have the power to choose. You can pause, breathe, and ask, what is truly essential? What actually matters, and what's just noise? Most of us don't ask this question because we're scared. We fear missing out. We want to please people. We don't want to look lazy. But Greg shows us that not choosing is also a choice, one that leads to chaos. So the first step toward Essentialism is awareness. It's waking up from the autopilot mode and realizing, I don't have to do it all. I get to decide what's important. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. It means you're in charge, not your boss, not your phone, not society's expectations. And once you accept that, your life begins to change. You start noticing how many things you're doing just out of habit or fear. You begin to see that busyness isn't a badge. It's often a sign of confusion. Essentialism isn't about being lazy. It's about being focused. It's about doing fewer things, but doing them really, really well. And it all starts with saying no to the non-essential, so you can say a powerful yes to what truly matters. Saying no sounds so simple, right? But for most of us, it feels impossible. We want to be helpful. We want to be liked. And we don't want to disappoint anyone. So we keep saying yes to requests we don't have time for, projects we don't care about, and obligations that drain us. And slowly, our own dreams, goals, and peace get buried under everyone else's expectations. Greg McKeown calls this out bluntly. He says, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. Think about that for a second. Every time you say yes out of guilt or pressure, you're actually saying no to something more important. Your rest, your goals, your family, your freedom. Essentialism teaches us that the key to a meaningful life is not saying yes more. It's learning how to say no with courage, clarity, and kindness. But Greg doesn't just preach. He gives tools. He says we need to create a system in our life where no becomes our default, not because we're rude, but because we're focused. For example, when someone asks you to take on something new, don't respond immediately. Pause. Buy yourself time. Say, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you." This gives you space to reflect. Is this essential? Does this align with my purpose? Or is this just another distraction? The truth is, not everything deserves your time. Most things are noise disguised as opportunities, and until you learn to filter them out, you'll keep being pulled in 100 directions, tired, overwhelmed, and frustrated. Greg also reminds us that saying no doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, it's one of the most respectful things you can do, for yourself and for others. When you say yes to everything, you end up doing everything half-heartedly. But when you say no to the things that don't matter, you show up with full energy for the things that do. That's real integrity. That's real impact. He even talks about how successful people like Steve Jobs were masters of saying no. They understood that focus isn't just about what you choose to do. It's about what you're willing to not do. Greg shares stories of clients who completely turned their lives around just by practicing this one habit. They stopped overcommitting, started making deliberate choices, and found more time, peace, and joy than they ever imagined. Because here's the secret. Every yes is a trade-off. Every time you commit to one thing, you're saying no to something else. Essentialism helps you become aware of those trade-offs, so you can make them consciously. So the next time you feel guilty for saying no, remember this. You're not rejecting a person. You're protecting your priorities. You're choosing to live by design, not by default. And in a world full of noise, that's not selfish. It's essential. Let's imagine for a second that you're in a boat in the middle of the sea. You have no map, no compass, no idea where you're going. The waves toss you around. The winds confuse your direction. And every small current feels like a new emergency. That's exactly how most of us live today. Busy, reactive, and pulled in every direction because we don't know where we actually want to go. Greg McKeown says the only way to escape this chaos is through one powerful word: clarity. If you don't know what's essential in your life, you'll end up chasing everything and achieving nothing. So how do you find clarity in a noisy world? Greg teaches us that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from stepping back. He encourages us to take the time to reflect, disconnect, and ask deep, honest questions. What do I really want? What matters most to me? What is the one thing that, if I focused on it, would make everything else easier or even unnecessary? These aren't small questions. They're life-defining ones. But we rarely stop long enough to ask them because we're so caught up in being productive. That's the trap. Productivity without purpose is just movement without meaning. You could be climbing the ladder fast, only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. Greg shares stories of high-powered executives who reached the top of their careers, only to realize they had sacrificed their health, their families, and their joy in the process. Why? Because they never defined success for themselves. They let the world decide. Essentialism challenges you to pause the noise and reconnect with your core intent. Whether it's in your work, your relationships, or your personal goals, you must ask, what's the highest point of contribution I can make? That's the essence of clarity. Not doing more, but doing the right things, for the right reasons. And here's the beautiful part. Once you gain clarity, life becomes lighter. You stop reacting to every ping on your phone, every request from others, every trend online. You start making decisions based on what's essential to you, not what's urgent to someone else. You protect your energy, your time, your mind space. Greg even recommends scheduling regular clarity breaks, simple, quiet moments in your week, where you disconnect from the world and reconnect with yourself. It can be a walk, a journal session, a deep breath. These small rituals give you the space to reset and remember your true direction. One of the most emotional ideas Greg shares is this: we only get one life, one chance to choose how we spend our time, our energy, our heart. And every day that we live without clarity is a day we give away to randomness. But with clarity, every step becomes intentional. Every action becomes aligned. You're no longer surviving the chaos, you're designing a life that actually means something. And that, Greg says, is the first real taste of freedom. Think about the last time you gave something your full attention. No distractions, no multitasking, just pure, focused energy. Maybe it was a creative project, a conversation with someone you love, or even just enjoying a quiet cup of tea. Now ask yourself this: how often does that happen? For most of us, it's rare. We've been conditioned to juggle everything. Multiple tabs open, phone in one hand, half listening, half doing. But Greg McKeown introduces us to a mindset that's revolutionary in its simplicity. Less, but better. It sounds soft, but it's bold. It's not about doing less just to relax. It's about making space to go deeper, not wider. It's about investing your time and energy into fewer things that actually move the needle. Greg says the problem isn't that we have too little time. It's that we waste it on too many trivial things. We say yes to every task, every favor, every email, thinking we're being helpful or productive. But all we're doing is spreading ourselves thin. The result? We do everything at 40% and nothing at 100%. Less but better flips that logic. It teaches you to cut out the noise, the unimportant meetings, the meaningless tasks, the false sense of urgency, and focus all your power on the few things that matter most. Not everything in life deserves a gold medal effort, but the right things do. And when you clear away the non-essential, what remains becomes clearer, stronger, more powerful. One story Greg shares is about a design team at Apple. When Steve Jobs returned to the company, he didn't tell them to do more. He told them to do less. Fewer products, fewer features, but executed with perfection. That single shift brought Apple back to life. That's the power of narrowing your focus. Most of us are chasing quantity. More followers, more income, more tasks checked off. But essentialism is about quality. It's about pouring yourself fully into a few important things, and doing them with such excellence that they transform your life and the lives of others. But this kind of focus doesn't happen by accident. You have to fight for it. You have to protect your time like it's sacred, because it is. Greg encourages you to audit your commitments. Look at your calendar. Look at how you spend your days. How many things on there are truly essential? How many are distractions dressed up as opportunities? Saying yes to everything may feel good in the moment, but it robs you of depth. And real success, real fulfillment, it lives in depth. Not in being everywhere, but in being fully present in the right places. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, scattered, or burned out, remember this: you don't need to do more. You need to do less, but better. Cut through the clutter. Slow down. Go deep. Whether it's your career, your relationships, or your personal goals, stop being everywhere. Be fully somewhere. That's the heart of essentialism. And that's how greatness is born. Let's be honest, discipline isn't a sexy word. When people hear it, they imagine strict routines, no fun, early mornings, and zero flexibility. But in Essentialism, Greg McKeown gives us a completely fresh way to look at discipline. He says discipline is not about restriction, it's about freedom. Real, deep, soul-level freedom. When you know what matters most to you, and you set clear boundaries to protect it, you actually feel lighter, calmer, and more in control. But without boundaries, life becomes a constant flood of interruptions, obligations, and regrets. That's why Essentialism teaches you not just what to cut, but how to guard the space you've cleared. How to design a life that protects your energy, not just spends it. Greg explains that essentialists don't wait for chaos to knock on their door before setting rules. They are proactive. They build routines that support their goals. They create habits that align with their purpose. And most importantly, they design boundaries that give them space to breathe, create, and be fully present. For example, if sleep is essential to your well-being, then you protect your bedtime like it's an important meeting. If focused work is essential to your creativity, then you block off hours on your calendar where no one can disturb you. These aren't selfish acts. They're acts of self-respect. Many of us struggle because we live in reaction mode, Our phones buzz and we respond. Emails arrive and we jump. People ask for favors and we say yes without thinking. But Greg flips this mindset. He teaches us that boundaries are not about saying no to people. They're about saying yes to what truly matters. And when people see that you operate with clarity and intention, they often respect you more. You become known as someone who values their time, who doesn't chase everything, who delivers quality, not just quantity. Greg even talks about how essentialists use routines as a form of protection. Not boring routines, but intentional, focused systems that remove decision fatigue. Think about Steve Jobs wearing the same outfit every day, not because he didn't care, but because he wanted to save his mental energy for what truly mattered. Or authors who write at the same time every day, not because they're forced to, but because it frees their creativity. These systems are quiet, almost invisible, but they are powerful. They help you stay on track even when life gets noisy. And then there's the emotional side. Setting boundaries means you're going to disappoint some people. You might get called selfish. You might feel guilty. But Greg reminds us, that's okay. You are not responsible for everyone else's expectations. You are responsible for your own well-being, your own mission. Every time you say no with love, every time you protect your time, you're telling the world and yourself that your life matters, that your energy has value, that you are not available for everything. Because you're committed to the essential few, not the trivial many. So discipline? It's not punishment. It's power. It's designing a life that serves you, not swallows you. And in that discipline, you'll find the real freedom you've been searching for all along. There's a quiet tragedy happening in so many people's lives, and most of the time, they don't even notice it. It's not caused by failure or laziness or bad luck. It's caused by something far more subtle: saying yes too quickly and saying no too slowly. Greg McKeown calls this out as one of the biggest hidden habits that drain our time, energy, and joy. He says essentialists live by a simple but powerful rule. They say no quickly and clearly, and they say yes only after deep, careful thought. This one shift, though small on the surface, can change the direction of your entire life. Most of us say yes out of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of disappointing others, fear of conflict. So we commit without thinking. We take on extra work, we agree to events we don't care about, we overpromise, and slowly we start building a life full of obligations that don't reflect who we are. Greg says, imagine your life as a closet. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're stuffing another random shirt in there. Eventually the door won't close. You're overwhelmed, cluttered, and frustrated. Not because of one big mistake, but because of 100 small yeses that never should have happened. Essentialists, on the other hand, treat every yes as sacred. They take time to consider. Is this aligned with my goals? Will this move me closer to who I want to be? What will I have to sacrifice to make space for this? If the answer isn't a clear yes, then it's a no. No guilt. No over-explaining. Just a calm, respectful decision to protect what matters most. Greg gives real examples, like a manager who stopped attending every meeting and suddenly had time to mentor his team deeply, or a working mom who declined just one more favor and finally had energy for her own passion project. These aren't magical outcomes. They're the result of learning to pause and choose with intention. Greg also talks about the power of the graceful no. You don't have to be rude to protect your time. You can say things like, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I can't commit to this right now." Or, "I'm focusing on fewer priorities this season, and unfortunately, this doesn't fit." The more you practice, the more confident you become, and surprisingly, people start respecting your boundaries more, not less. Because deep down, everyone wants to be around someone who values their time, because it inspires them to do the same. Another gem from Greg. Essentialists also create buffers, extra time between tasks, extra space in their schedule, so they're not always reacting or rushing. They expect the unexpected. They give themselves room to breathe, reflect, and pivot when needed. And when you do that, life doesn't feel like a race anymore. It starts to feel like it's actually under your control. Your yes becomes powerful. It means something, because it's not automatic. It's intentional. So if you're tired of living on autopilot, constantly saying yes, constantly feeling stretched, then maybe it's time to flip the script. Pause, breathe, practice the slow yes and the fast no, and watch how your life transforms from chaotic to calm, from reactive to deliberate. When you finally decide to live like an essentialist, you're not just choosing a productivity strategy. You're choosing an entirely different way of being, one where you no longer measure your value by how busy you are, one where your worth isn't tied to how much you can juggle or how many plates you can keep spinning. You're choosing a life of focus, of meaning, of peace. But Greg McKeown doesn't sugarcoat it. This path is not always easy. In fact, at first it can feel lonely. Because when you start saying no to noise, people notice. When you stop playing the game of always available, always agreeable, some people may push back. They might not understand. But here's the truth Greg wants you to remember. You're not here to please everyone. You're here to make your highest contribution. Greg calls this the essentialist mindset. A quiet strength that says, I choose what I give my time to. It's about owning your life again. Not letting your phone, your inbox, or other people's demands run it for you. And yes, it takes courage. Courage to disappoint someone today, so you can honor your bigger yes tomorrow. Courage to slow down when the world is speeding up. Courage to focus on depth over surface, quality over quantity. But when you do, when you choose what truly matters, and you commit to it with intention, your life starts to transform. Greg shares stories of people who, after embracing essentialism, finally wrote that book, launched that business, healed that relationship, or simply found joy again. Not because they got more hours in the day, but because they claimed their hours back. They stopped scattering their energy and started directing it like a laser beam. And in that clarity, they found flow. They found creativity. They found peace. Imagine waking up and knowing exactly what your top priority is, and having the space to actually work on it. No more guilt about all the things you didn't do. No more burnout from chasing everything. Just presence, focus, and impact. But the essentialist life isn't just about big goals. It's also about small sacred moments. Sitting with your child and actually listening. Taking a walk without checking your phone. Saying no to a weekend full of plans so you can rest and reflect. These little choices, made over time, build a life of intention. They shape your identity. They help you become someone who doesn't just exist, but lives fully. Greg ends the book with a gentle but powerful reminder. You always have a choice. You don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You can pause. You can breathe. You can ask, what's essential here? And then, here's the key. You can act on it. That's where freedom begins. That's where power lives. And that's how you stop surviving your days and start owning them.